Okay, now we're gonna cover the spin behind as it pertains to taking the back. So I mentioned and if you haven't watched the top control version of this, please watch that first. But the idea is if somebody gains this underhook and I go to step away, let's just actually rotate a little bit more so people can see this. The more advanced the practitioner is, the more they're going to be willing to chase the leg and try to come up on a single. So like complete that. Yeah. So like this is the sort of thing they're going to be looking to do. When we elect to do the spin behind, as it, again, as it pertains to more advanced practitioners and attempting to take the back, if my knee stays too tight, this is why we kind of went over this motion earlier of extending myself away just enough that he can't capture my leg, but not so far that he doesn't have a prayer of capturing my leg. So if I'm just like here already, he's not necessarily gonna try to get up. We need to have it be like he's trying to get me, and then I'm on his back by virtue of the spin behind. So let's just come back here. So when we do this, just be aware of that the more confident they are, I shouldn't say confident, the more aggressive they are about pursuing your leg, as long as they don't connect their hands, the more likely you are to end up spinning to the back, even if they make it up onto their elbow a little bit. Like, let's do this kind of slowly. So you're reaching for my leg, I spin, there we go. He gets up to his elbow, keep going. It's kind of how it ends up happening. When I learned this movement, which obviously, as with many things in my back attack game, we got this from Ryan Hall. When I learned this movement, I found it very difficult to hit on like basically anybody below purple belt, at least as far as taking the back. And then I passed, or I got to the point where my guard passing was good enough where I was passing black belts. They'd come in on the underhook, I'd spin behind and take the back much easier. So like as you get up against better and better competition, you'll find that this one works a lot more. I won't beat that point to death, but I break posture, my knee comes down here. If he's just barely holding onto my leg, as I make the switch, rather than going right to my elbow and pinning him down, I'm gonna go to my hand, let him start to turn and build up, and then the kick is what kind of ends us here. All right, so that's the sort of more dynamic version of it, which is as they're getting up. The other way that this will go down is if we get to this spin behind motion and he hasn't come up yet, and when we get to here, we get behind his, just rotate a little bit, we get behind the armpit and we have our head by his head. So try to air guitar out. I'll be able to hit the seat belt at this point. So I'll be fully into the spin behind position and now try to get back. Because he can't get his back to the floor by virtue of my post blocking the force vector and my rib cage driving behind his shoulder blade, my head driving behind his shoulder. We can now connect our hands. So you try to get your back to the floor. That leads us to our chair sit, which leads us to the back. So there are two versions of this. Again, the more dynamic someone is, the more likely it is that they're just gonna start to come up on the single, you're gonna get behind them, and they will basically end up in the turtle with you hitting a seat belt and attempting to take their back from there. I guess a little bit slower opponents and a little bit faster that you are at this, you'll catch them before they manage to really fully turn on the leg. You'll get behind them, and if you're able to keep your chest nice and low, keep your hip behind their hip, and create enough of a block that they can't put their back to the floor, you'll be able to hit the chair sit back take that way.